Dr. David Hill. Good morning. Thank you. You're very kind. It's early in the morning, you really don't have to stand up. It's okay. Maybe later in the day you're going to be so tired of sitting you'll want to stand up. This is a great privilege for me to be able to talk with you about the Aroma Touch. I'm curious, I'm assuming that most of you know about the Aroma Touch, have used the Aroma Touch, but is there anybody here who the Aroma Touch is brand new for them, that you're just learning about it for the first time? By raise of hands? Well, thank you. There's a lot of things I'd like to share with you this morning. If it's okay, we're going to do that a little more freely than what we maybe normally would. Including it may be, okay, I'm just going to be really honest with you. Conventions are normally very heavily planned. You know that, right? There's a lot of detail, there's a lot of organization. This is the one segment that I've been the most excited about, but it's also the one segment that I got zero information about. And so expectation has not been set, so that gives us some freedom this morning that we can kind of do whatever we want. That may include a demo, maybe it won't include a demo, maybe it's going to be questions coming from you. Maybe we can, Christian, try to prepare if we can get a mic in case we want to go that direction. That would be great. But let me start off by just talking with you about the Aroma Touch. I thought maybe I'd tell you why I love the Aroma Touch and where it came from, actually. The Aroma Touch is something that, for me, was unanticipated and something that I had not thought about or thought that I would do. But nonetheless, I had opportunity for. And the opportunity came for a very specific reason. You have to remember that when we started doTERRA, that we came into this enterprise with a unique perspective, and that was that we wanted to be able to make a difference for people with the essential oils. We did have to accomplish some things. We had to move the oils out of obscurity and into the mainstream. One of the biggest challenges that we had is that those who were involved with essential oils largely had been receiving information that was skewed or that was not relevant and not correct. For example, my wife and I one time we had moved into a new area and we were invited to go to somebody's home, and we were trying to get to know everybody, and a lot of the individuals who were there were 3 or 4 other doctors who were there, and so we're just talking, and they don't know very much about me, and I don't know very much about them. And they started talking about essential oils, and they had some energy and some excitement for essential oils. And one of the doctors says, peppermint is my favorite essential oil. I love peppermint, he said. He was a radiologist, and I said, oh, well, that's great, everybody likes peppermint. I'm trying not to interject in this conversation. And he goes, one of the things that's really cool about essential oils, and that someday we'll understand, is how they work outside of the body's normal physiology. How they do things that defy reason. He goes, for example, peppermint causes your red blood cells to divide. And that's why it's so invigorating. And I remember sitting there and I said, that's not true. Essential oils don't work outside of human physiology. They work within human physiology. They work within that framework more dynamically than anything else can. And so I shared with him, I said, well, I actually don't think that's the case. And he asked me the question. He knew who I was, but he didn't really know who I was. And he said, well, do you know a lot about essential oils? And I said, I might know a few things, yes. And that's not what happens with the essential oils. And it was this moment that indelibly burned into my mind that said, people really don't understand. They only know what's been said. We live in such a different time now where we understand all of the dynamics of the essential oils and its full prowess for all of the benefits that they create. And that happens not only intellectually through the knowledge and the experience and the expertise that we have, but that happens also through the advantages of our own experience. And this was a little bit of the impetus for why the Aroma Touch. That line of thinking, that process. In the early days, as I would go out and travel, many of you know that my travel schedule was difficult and has remained difficult for a long period of time. The shortest year that I ever had away from my family was 285 days. The average was just right at 300 days a year. I would be out away from my family, teaching and instructing about the essential oils. I'm grateful that my family understood the mission and the purpose that we were trying to accomplish, and my wife, who to me is the hero in my life and the person I rely on more than anybody else, who is here with us today, hiding in the back. I owe her a debt of gratitude because I don't know how she did everything she did while I was out doing everything that I needed to do. But collectively, we were united in that process, and for that, I'm forever grateful. So thank you, sweetheart. As I would travel and come home, my wife would frequently say, "What can I do to be helpful for you? How do I help you? Do you want oils?" And of course I always did, and she'd put oils on my feet, and she'd put oils on my back, and it always helped me. But I began to feel there must be a way that we could use the essential oils with consistency. That practically in everything that we do, we would have simplicity and we would have outcomes that were beneficial, that were predictable. And as this would happen over and over again, as my wife very caringly would add or give me essential oils trying to help me, you might not realize this about me, mostly because I know I'm such a fine physical specimen. I understand that fully. I'm bone on bone in my entire spine. I don't have any disc spaces left. My spine has completely collapsed. And so every day for me, standing here on the stage with you this morning, I have pain. I'm in various stages of pain all day long, every single day. But I have resolved that I'm not going to let it impede me. And so when I would come home after riding in a middle seat on a plane for countless days and hours and doing all the things that I would do, it made sense that my wife would say, "What can I do to help you?" And the oils were always beneficial. The other thing that I experienced very early on in doTERRA, it's kind of funny in a way, when we first started talking about the essential oils, I taught several classes in doTERRA without having any oils. You watched the video, where the Genesis video, and we were searching, we were looking, and so I would go out and I would get everybody all excited about the essential oils, and then literally I would have to say, "And we don't have any yet, but when we do, you're going to love them. They're going to be wonderful." I remember the very first meeting I ever did where I actually had essential oils. In that video, you saw us open up these oils that we had found, that we knew were pure, that had been tested, that we had gone through the process with. So we were very excited to receive them. Those were the oils. We hand-filled our bottles. We took those kilos that you saw us open up. We took those and we set up a Costco table, a white banquet table, those folding tables you can get, and we all had our individual jobs. Emily and I would take a syringe and we would suck the oil out and we would squirt it into a bottle. We would hold it up. So that looks like it's about the same. We both got about the same amount in our bottles. We'd put them on the table. And then Greg Cook's job was to take the lid and to take the reducer and put it in the bottle and screw the lid on tight. That's why the oils always leaked in the early days, because Greg did not do that correctly. And then Dave Sterling was at the end of the table with a pair of scissors. And he was hand cutting out the labels that we had printed off of our computer and taping them on the bottle. That's where we started. And that first meeting that I went to, and I had essential oils, that was an exciting moment. Because it was the first time I could let people experience what we were talking about. Well, from there, as you can imagine, there were lots of opportunities where people would come to me and say, Dr. Hill, I have this, or I don't know what to do for, or my child is suffering from, or my husband, or my wife. And I always felt like I had the answers for them, but it began once again to burn within my mind. It would make more sense for people if they had a way. Yes, there's going to be always things that lie outside of what we would think about with the Aroma Touch. However, what I've learned over time is that there's nothing that the Aroma Touch can't help with. And so it was important to me that we have an organized way that we can introduce individuals to the essential oils, that we can have them have a positive and a powerful experience, and that experience was predictable, and that experience was associated with that regardless of how much you know, whether you do or don't understand about the essential oils, without you knowing a single thing about their chemistry, without you knowing a single thing about the condition that somebody is in front of you saying, can you help me with this, that you with confidence could go through a process that was valuable for them and that would help them. And that's where it began in my mind. I began thinking about the Aroma Touch. It wasn't called the Aroma Touch. I just began thinking about, is there a way that I could tell people that they could use oils within those parameters? And it took me a long period of time to work my way through the Aroma Touch. In total, it was about 1.5 years of time that I spent developing the Aroma Touch. In the little office space that we worked within, you know, do you remember in the Genesis video and we were opening up the bottle and we were all excited? Do you know where that was? That was in a janitor's closet in the bottom of a friend's office building. That was our office. That was our main office. We literally cleared out the janitor supplies. There was room just enough for one of those little tables. And Greg and Dave Sterling sat on one side, and Emily and I sat on the other side. You notice that we were all in very close quarters there. If you had to get up and leave the room, everybody had to get up and leave because there was no way for you to move past anybody. So once you were in, you were in. I chose the outside seat so that when Emily said, excuse me, when Emily said, here comes that sexy voice. When Emily said, Dr. Hill, I need to get out, I could look at her and go, oh, not yet, I'm busy. That's where we began in this. And so as we now had progressed to the point where we actually had office space, there was no space for me to be able to do what I needed to do in developing the Aroma Touch. This was a labor of love because I would spend my time when I was traveling, my mind would be focused on what do I need the Aroma Touch to accomplish? What would be the best thing for it to do? On those rare occasions where I had a few days at home, it was spent with, I need to be able to work with this and try to develop this and see what's effective and what isn't. I developed the Aroma Touch in a storage closet in our first office space. I literally moved out the file cabinets and things that were in there, and I had just enough room to set up a table, which I could sort of kind of move around. And that's where I developed the Aroma Touch because I wanted some privacy. My guinea pigs were good friends, people like Justin Harrison, which many of you know, our first wellness advocate in doTERRA. I said, I need your help. And he would come in And I would try different things, and he would give me feedback. That feels horrible. That did nothing. You don't know what you're doing. That was all the good things that a friend would commonly say. And I did that for months and months and months. I also had to go through the process of, if I know what it is that I need to accomplish, then how do I best accomplish that? And I went through that process by first deciding, and I know we talk a lot about systemic constants. I will tell you, since we're talking so privately today, I actually don't like the name systemic constants. I've never liked that name and how that represents what we're doing because I think it's inadequate. However, it is the perfect descriptor of what we're doing. And where this came from in this process of the Aroma Touch, it came from this idea that all of my patients, in all of my years in patient care, my patients always came to me generally with one of or multiples of 4 different things. It might express differently, it might not express in the way that you typically would think, but it was still an issue of stress, or an issue of immunity, or an issue of inflammation. For example, if somebody came to me with arthritic type conditions, that's inflammation. But in my practice, I also look at, well, what is the driver of that process? Where is that really coming from? Here's the outward symptomatology. And over time, I began to make this association between stress as one of the levers that gets pulled, that all of my patients were stressed in one way or another. Just daily living is somewhat stressful now, isn't it? And by the way, stress is a really interesting thing, and here's why it's a common denominator in everything that we do with the Aroma Touch. Stress to your body is exactly the same no matter what it is. If I were to come to you and say, you know what, you're just like such a nice person, my wife and I talked about it. I don't have this to give you, by the way, but we're going to give you $1 million, and we don't care what you do with it, and here you go. Go enjoy it, and I hope it blesses your life, and we're going to give you $1 million too. We just think you deserve it, and we want you to have it. And if we had that, maybe we would, but we don't. So anyway, there you go. That's no different than if I came to you and I said, I'm so sorry. I have the worst news I could ever give to you. Your spouse has passed away unexpectedly, or whatever it might be. Your experience of complete joy and all of those emotions, and your experience of complete and total grief, outwardly would manifest very, very differently, but inwardly is the exact same process. There's no difference in that cascade. To the body, stress is just stress. And so we might think to ourselves, well, I really don't have stress, but you do, and the key is it long-term stress or is it episodic? It comes and it goes periodically, which sometimes has some health benefits associated with that. That's not always a bad thing. It's like so many things that we deal with our health where it becomes chronic. And so I had decided that stress is an important part of what needs to be addressed with the Aroma Touch. And then it was an easy jump to say immunity also has to be addressed, because one of the things that happens when we have chronic stress is we have reduced immune capability. And reduced immune capability speaks for itself. We are also exposed to things that go beyond our immune capability, even when it is functioning optimally. Even when that's happening, we don't always have the immune capability when it's at its peak that will sufficiently manage some of the things that we're now exposed to, in the form of toxicity and microbes and many other things that happen within the body on a regular basis. And so that was an issue that had to be dealt with. And inflammation, there's a lot of debate when we start talking about inflammation, but my patients all came to me with various stages of chronic inflammation, which, by the way, I am going to talk about today from main stage for a little bit on how we might address some of those things. Inflammation destroys tissues. That's what it always does. It will degrade and destroy tissue. You think about somebody who has long-term arthritic type conditions and the loss that they have of synovial tissue and the gnarled fingers and the pain and all of the other things that tend to happen because of that. Cancer is an inflammatory disease. Diabetes is an inflammatory disease. And these are the things that my patients were coming to me for all of the time. I was in a unique circumstance in my private practice in that I was in a smaller community. And even though those things weren't my specialty, people came to me for resolve. Part of my interest in essential oils grew out of, at least in part, that I didn't feel like I had adequate answers for my patients, and it bothered me. I didn't feel like I had the answer to be able to tell you, here's where your solution can be found. And when we discovered and became involved with essential oils, it changed my whole perspective. This is also why the Aroma Touch and the essential oils used within it is so critical. I literally took all of the oils that I could think of that would fit into or in some way might manage some of those categories that we're talking about with poor health. And I divided them into these categories and I began trying multiples of combinations. So when Justin or others would come in, I'd say, here's the oils I'm going to use today. I'd like to know how you feel about, and I'd give them a scenario. And I chose the individuals I was working with because in some ways they were manifesting some of the issues that I had described here. And it became very effective for me over time to narrow this down to 8 specific essential oils. Now of note with the Aroma Touch, one of the things that's very unique is that I have never changed the technique since the day I started the technique. It has never changed. That's for 2 reasons, is that one, there was a real process that I went through that was a clinical process, looking at the chemistry, looking at the human physiology, looking at outcomes specifically. And even though at the time I didn't have ways that I could do a human clinical trial, which we've now done on the Aroma Touch, and it does exactly what we said that it does, which I'm very pleased about. But we've known that all along because of our own experience. You, either yourself or others. Now the last stage of this was homeostasis. And homeostasis is an interesting thing to talk about. It's a little bit in medicine and healthcare, it's one of those voodoo kind of words. Yeah, okay, and let's light some candles and hold hands, right? I mean, we don't know how to describe this. You don't go to school and say, well, we're going to learn about homeostasis today. That's not what you learn. You learn about disease process. You learn about chain reactions. You learn about pharmacology. You learn about physiology. You learn about all of these different things. But never did I participate in all of my discussions and in all of my education in anything that had anything to do with homeostasis. Homeostasis I typically describe as a physiological process as it applies to your autonomic nervous system. Those of you who have learned the Aroma Touch have learned about sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. I do that every time. Every time I teach, I do that. Because you just felt sympathetic response. It was instant. You're welcome. Your heart's beating, you're alive, you're awake, you're welcome. But this is also the problem that we have. And parasympathetic is, and hopefully you'll calm down and everything. Well, I won't do that to you again, but I might be lying. You'll see. Hopefully you'll calm down and everything will be fine and you go into what's called parasympathetic response. The common belief is that you're either sympathetic or you're parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is I'm at rest, I'm at ease. My body is able to react and respond. Sympathetic is fight or flight. My body's under stress. I'm in protection mode, or whatever it happens to be. We've all been in those circumstances where clearly we felt completely at ease and we felt completely uncomfortable, and maybe in the dynamic of fight or flight. Those are the opposite extremes. And I've always described it that parasympathetic is associated with rest, and sympathetic is associated with fight or flight. And it's easy to believe that you're one or the other, but that's not what we're trying to achieve. That's really not what homeostasis is. I continue to talk about it in that context because when I first developed the Aroma Touch, one of the things that I was nervous about, fearful of even, I'll be honest, is the amount of critique I was going to come under. I was already called a quack because I was using essential oils. And now I've got this weird technique where you apply the essential oils. And I felt like I had to have some markers in place that would allow me to say, no, this is physiologically sound. This is medicinally sound. This is meaningful and valuable. Not too long after I launched the Aroma Touch, I was in my office working one day, and a gentleman just walked in who I did not know, sat down in front of me, and he goes, "What's all this Aroma Touch nonsense?" And I said, my name's Dr. Hill, who are you? And I don't remember his name. I should. I've got his signature, but I don't remember his name. Can't read his signature, he's a doctor. And he introduced himself, and he was a neurophysiologist, I believe was his correct title. And he said, my daughter has gotten involved with doTERRA, which is one issue. And the other issue is she somehow seems to think that you're brilliant because you created some kind of a crazy technique to use those weird things. That's exactly what he said. And I said, well, I don't know if I know your daughter. And he goes, well, I don't think she's ever met you. She just follows you like you're some kind of a gray cat. I'm like, well, maybe I am. I mean, how do you respond to something like that? And it didn't matter what I said, no matter how much I tried to lighten the mood, he was upset and angry. And he said, well, there's no basis for any of this. You and I both know it. You're just making something up. And at the time, I had just taught 1 or 2 classes in the Aroma Touch publicly. And his daughter apparently had come to one of those 2 classes. It was down in St. George, which is where I think she came, which was the second time, which is not too far from where we live, second time I ever taught the Aroma Touch. And he said, well, you're going to prove it to me. But I still had on my desk all of the research and things I had gone through. And it was very much, my office was very much Aroma Central at that point. And I said, well, there's a lot of research here. I mean, let's talk about this. Because he was bringing up some points. And I said, yeah, that's all right here. And he got to the point where he said, okay, that may be. Okay, so it's not just something that you just kind of recklessly created, fine. But it doesn't work, I can promise you that. And he goes, and tomorrow I'm going to come back here and you're going to give an Aroma Touch to my wife. And we'll just see if it works or not. I remember thinking to myself, I'm calling in sick tomorrow. I am not coming in. But I said, oh, okay, fine, that would be great. I mean, either the Aroma Touch works or it doesn't work. Here's a person, I found out later that he actually had worked on a team that had won the Nobel Prize looking at neuroscience and how the brain functions, and in particular the cascade of how the brain functions in response to different things. And so he came in the next morning. On my drive into the office, I was, as you can imagine, a little bit tentative. I don't know who this person is. How do I get myself into these problems all the time? And on the way in, I thought to myself, I'm not going to give his wife an Aroma Touch. I'm going to give him one. And if he doesn't want to do that, then I'll just politely say, well, then I can't help you. And so he came in, and his wife was there, and she was a very kind person. And I said, I'm so sorry, I won't be able to help you today. I'm going to give you an aroma touch and let you experience what this is. And it was so funny because his wife said, see, I told you so. So he got on the table and I started doing the aroma touch, and immediately, of course, you can imagine, what are you doing that for? And I finally just said, how about I just do the aroma touch? And how about I be really honest with you? I don't have all the answers on the aroma touch. I just know that I created something that's powerful and that is effective and that will benefit you. I have some of the answers because I went through a real process to develop this. I based it on my knowledge. If your knowledge exceeds mine, I would love to know your thoughts. But right now, maybe let's just try to do this and then we can talk afterwards. And so I gave him the aroma touch, which, as is typical, he fell asleep. But as I was going through the aroma touch, occasionally he'd just say, that's interesting. And there was a point where I wanted to just take my elbow and jam it right into it. It was really frustrating. And we got all done, and he sat up on the table, and he goes, do you have some time that we can talk? And I said, I do. I should have probably put a picture in here. This is why I have his signature. We went to my office, and he said, you really have no idea what you just created, do you? And I said, I have an idea. What I don't know is why it does what it does. I don't know that in its entirety. Even after all of these years with the aroma touch, I don't have all of the answers to the aroma touch. There is something that, for lack of a better word, lack of a better description, is somewhat magical about the essential oils. Meaning that as predictable as they are with their chemistry, well, I know that it has this, and I know it has this, and I know that this is how these work together. And gosh, we do know pathway. Dr. DeBell can tell you all about pathways. We know pathways right now, and we know all of these different things. And so absolutely, I definitely know how this is working. But then all of a sudden we have an experience where none of that matters and none of that matches up, and something miraculous or something unexpected happens, and that's why we love oils. That's also the reason why we love the aroma touch. It's also the reason why after all of these years I've not changed the oils that we use. I've not changed the aroma touch and how we do it. Because it's not necessary. He spent the next couple of hours, he said, okay, when you did this, here's what happened. And he drew this schematic of the brain. And he talked about all of this neurochemical response that in his mind he deduced he experienced. At the end of which, I made him sign the paper. I go, would you mind signing that? And I took a picture of it, which I sometimes show. I said, thank you for coming in, and thank you for helping me understand a little bit more. Truthfully, I didn't understand anything he was saying. I was just like, wow, I knew it. I knew that was the case. What a remarkable moment that was for me to feel validated. What I've learned since then is that I really don't care about those moments. Not that it has no meaning for me. It was. He congratulated me and he thanked me for creating the aroma touch. He told me I'm going to have my daughter teach this to me so I can do it on my wife and she can do it on me. When I say I don't care about those things, I don't, because the objective was not for accolades. The objective was not so that somebody could say, wow, you're brilliant. The objective was so that exactly what happened could happen. He had this opportunity now to do something that previously he had no connection to. He had no way to even catalog it for the value that it could have. But then he had an experience that told him, I want to learn this. I want to use this. I can help my family. And they can help me. The aroma touch is about how we give service to other people. The aroma touch is about how we have opportunity to reach outside of ourselves, where we are in that moment, in all of our inadequacy. How many of you feel like you are an essential oil expert? I'd really like you to raise your hands. Great, wonderful. I'm not raising mine. We do feel like we have confidence in what we know, and I do too. But I wake up every day and the first thought that comes into my mind, or one of the first thoughts, is just how much I yet don't know. It's one of the things that continues to drive us in doTERRA. It's one of the reasons why we have the inquisition that we have for research and for science, for discovery, for doing things that have not been done before, for understanding things that nobody has had opportunity before, for not being afraid to step out on the edge and say, I'm going to do something I've never done before. And the Aroma Touch is one of the tools that you and I have where we can do that in a way that we have never had opportunity before. There's really some interesting research that I keyed into very early on when I was contemplating and thinking about the Aroma Touch. And it's research that talks about acts of service. I actually found two interesting types of research. One type of research I found was, do you know that we really become who we associate with? And I have some evidence of this. They took individuals and they looked at this in two different categories. One category was the types of pets that people had. And they had lots of things where they showed and demonstrated that pet owners and their pets end up looking largely the same. Okay, well, sure. People look refined, people look unrefined. There's bulldogs and there's poodles, so I guess that makes some sense. That makes some great sense. But then they talked about it in the human context, that we become largely who we associate with. One of the reasons why we talk about culture in doTERRA, about who we are, and why we find meaning and value in reaching outside of ourselves. And how many of us are here, as evidence of this, are here because somebody introduced us to the essential oils. Somebody did something for us to help us with something that we didn't know we needed or could do or didn't have any answers for. Almost every hand goes up. That is part of the culture of doTERRA. And so when I read through that research, that was valuable to me. I also remember thinking in my mind, I hope I end up looking more like my wife and she ends up not looking like me as we spend time together. And you've noticed that too. Couples end up looking very, very similar in their demeanor, in their expressions. We adopt into those things. I hope you feel like I do that we are in good company in doTERRA. We are good people doing good things. On the very first slide I showed you, it said Aroma Touch, people helping people. There was a time where that said the Aroma Touch Technik, a clinical approach to essential oil application, because I wanted people to have some confidence in what they were learning, that it wasn't just something that was abstract, that there really was a great purpose behind its development. How long have I been talking for? Does anybody know? We only have 4 minutes left. Wow. Sorry, Christian, we're not going to get to where we thought we would get to. The other part of that research was they took a group of individuals who all themselves had different types of health conditions and circumstances. And they provided for them opportunities to give service to other people. Just nothing more, nothing less, simple acts of service. And what they noted was two very important things. One is that as they conducted these acts of service, they had opportunity for their health to improve, the giver of the service. had opportunity for their health to improve. The other thing that they noticed, the other thing that they found was, if they gave service to somebody they did not know, somebody who they were not previously familiar with, that the amount of improvement they had in their own health was markedly higher, substantially improved. I think that's a part of our human nature, our psyche, our physiology, that we need and we want to be able to have opportunity to help other people. Remember the three things that we talked about. We all want to know that we matter. We want to know that we're making a difference somewhere. We want to know that we belong somewhere. That's inherent no matter where we are in the world, no matter where we live. The Aroma Touch, over decades now, has fulfilled this opportunity for people to get outside of themselves and help. Now, I have a belief with the Aroma Touch that the Aroma Touch is more than just what we've described here today. I don't ever talk about the business in doTERRA. It's not because I don't know the business of doTERRA. I have to know the business of doTERRA. I have responsibilities for the business of doTERRA. But I don't talk about it because I don't care about it. I know that sounds crazy. I don't care about it because I have trusted partners. We have trusted employees. We have people who can make sure that those things are happening the way that they are. The only thing that I have ever thought in the business sense is that for me, the Aroma Touch also represents, better than any other way that I can give somebody an essential oil experience that I know is powerful, that I know is safe, that I know is going to create positive change and outcome for them, regardless of their circumstance. That it's okay if I don't have all the answers for them and can't tell them all the chemistry and all the physiology. I want you to feel comfortable that that's okay. It doesn't matter. Now, I'm committed to the Aroma Touch. Somebody came to me the other day, and we've had some recent changes in our office and in the Aroma Touch, and somebody came to me and said, "What are you going to do?" I know you all know, and I don't want to bring a melancholy kind of an environment here, but I will miss Jordan Ricks, who, after more than 4 years, lost her battle with cancer. I've been quiet about her passing. Because to my wife and I, it's deeply personal. And we don't share it publicly, but I would like to acknowledge her passing. Now, that having been said, the Aroma Touch is going to live on. The Aroma Touch will live beyond me. The Aroma Touch has value in everything that we're doing in regards to the essential oils. My challenge to you, and we'll give you more information on this, we're creating a whole new framework around the Aroma Touch. And we're not changing the technique and we're not changing the oils, but I feel the need to give people more opportunity to talk more freely and more openly about the Aroma Touch. I offer my congratulations to you because you do that better than anybody in the entire world, including in the United States. And I'm deeply indebted to you. In my time here that we've been visiting with you, a number of people have come up and expressed their love for the Aroma Touch. They've expressed their love for the opportunity that it's represented for them, and they've expressed their love for what it's represented in terms of them overcoming and having changes in their life. I thank you because none of that has anything to do with me. I'm not here, and you are. If you don't know the Aroma Touch, please learn it. If you know the Aroma Touch and you're not using it, please use it. I met a woman one time who said, I'm so proud of myself. I've been to every training you've ever done on the Aroma Touch. And I said, you must really love it. And she goes, oh, I don't know. I've never given one other than in the trainings. Doesn't help us if we don't use it. If you're using the Aroma Touch, I encourage you to use it more. I love the Aroma Touch. I love doTERRA. I love doTERRA. More important to me is I love my faith and I love my family. And I'm forever grateful for them for standing by me. Thank you for letting me be with you today.